and welcome back. Today we are here with the vegan powerhouse, Matt Tolman. This is going to be a two-part episode. Matt and I are interviewing one another, and to view my interview portion done by Matt, please check out his socials, and I will also link it in the description. And please share with the audience where to find you and where to find the second part of this episode, or the other part of this episode.
If you, Instagram is probably the best place. I can be found at Vegan VC, or you can search our companies, which is No Meat Athlete or Complement. Either of those will lead you one way or the other to our podcast, where you can hear the awesome conversation that you and I just had.
You are the co-founder and CEO of Outlier Health, the parent company of Complement and No Meat Athlete, which have served nearly 13 million people just in the past 3 years. You are also an investor in health, food, and beverage startups, and have dedicated your career to growing nutrition-first health companies based around the plant-based lifestyle for the mainstream consumer. You are also a husband, dad, and caretaker of rescued animals at a farm sanctuary. Please share with us your health journey and what led you to going plant-based.
Sure. Well, thank you for that and for the question. The short answer is that I've always been a bit compulsive, and I was a competitive athlete, and I was reading Men's Health magazine probably by like 16 years old. And so my health journey at the start was always focused on optimizing nutrition. I just had succumbed to the mainstream message about what that looked like. So it was a lot of turkey and chicken and Fiber One cereal, right? And it was not until we lost my uncle to cancer. The family had read the China study, and he had essentially been given a death sentence. One of those diagnoses where there's nothing we can do for you here. And they rejected that and said, look, if you can't help us, we're going to find someone who can. And they had found these other kind of alternative modalities of healing, right? Those that largely focused on nutrition. And that was a really big wake-up call for me. And that's when I started pulling on that thread. At that point, I was still in college, and I barely controlled my own eating. It was like whatever was in front of me and whatever was cheapest was generally what I ate. But it wasn't until after my first company that I didn't have a job. For the first time, I had just sold my company, and I thought, hey, I can go support my grandfather during what was supposed to be a routine surgery. And so I flew into Kansas City, and I was there in the hospital. I had no idea why I was there. We weren't even particularly that close. I was just trying to help. And I ended up staying there for 30 days. I didn't pack a bag or anything. I had no intention of being there, but through a series of oversights and other challenges, he eventually passed. And so I supported him through what was end of life care. And it was so transformative for me to hold someone's hand as they pass on to the next life, that it was yeah, like I say, shocking and also beautiful and transformative in all the right ways. And I went back to that early kind of inclination. I had already been vegetarian based on all that for many years. I was the weirdo who would order a veggie burger in Texas, right? Like it didn't work well. Um, yeah, but that was, I remember calling my wife and saying, hey, we're vegan now. I don't know what that means, but I'm pretty sure you can eat lettuce, and just stick with lettuce, and then we're going to selectively opt in new foods. And 10 years later, we've been vegan ever since. We've got 3 little boys who are vegan since birth. They are, and then my wife has gone through, this is her 4th pregnancy, on a fully plant-based diet. So we're kind of we're all in, right? And like you said, not only in our personal lives, but also in what we can do philanthropically and also in my business life, just trying to spread the message that plant-based nutrition really can prevent a lot, but also treat and sometimes even reverse some of the leading killers of, the US, but as more and more nations around the globe adopt this westernized diet that is so full of ultra processed food and animal products, they're starting to see some of those same health outcomes. So it's really a global ill health epidemic that we're looking to solve.
You've started many businesses and a few prominent ones that are vegan. Please tell us about them.
Sure. Well, one that I want to direct people to is called No Meat Athlete, and I didn't start No Meat Athlete. That was started by my partner Matt Frazier. I hopped on whatever it was 7 or 8 years ago as a CEO, and then the two of us also founded a company called Complement. And so No Meat Athlete is for anyone who wants to enhance their performance on a plant-based diet, whether that's performing as an athlete or as an actor or as a parent. It's really about finding your first 5K training plan, or your first half marathon, or your first marathon or ultra marathon, or strength training plans, or guides to meditation. It's really anything that you want to do to, like I say, improve your body or mind on a plant-based diet. And I encourage folks to check that out at nomeatathlete.com. Complement is our take on supplements. And so that's where we really focus a lot of our time, because that is where we are most passionate, because it advances our shared mission to see more people eating a plant-based diet. And so I'll spend just a moment to explain complement. Like I say, instead of supplement, to us means there's no reason to add additional nutrients to your whole food plant-based diet. You're already getting all of these nutrients in abundance. Some of these nutrients are just hard to get, hard to absorb, or just don't come from plants. And again, we always want to emphasize that a plant-based diet is by far the most nutrient dense and the best diet that we know of. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some other considerations that you should be thoughtful about. And that's because the soil just isn't what it used to be, right? We've decimated our soil quality, and the microbial populations that live in that soil, where so many of our vitamins and minerals come from, because of modern agricultural practices. So the veggies that you're eating today aren't the same veggies that maybe were growing, 1,000 years ago, right? So we have to be considerate about that. As well, people have different dietary patterns, access to foods. We love certain things. So we have these peaks and valleys in terms of what macro and micronutrients we might be getting in any given day, because of our preferences or because of seasonality, right? The earth looks different in winter, right? And a lot of that has changed because we can, import foods from Guatemala, in the middle of winter to Chicago, but those are still some of the considerations we should take. So we start Complement to be able to tell that story and to help vegans stay vegan, in effect, to help them thrive on this diet. Because in my own life, I was effectively raw vegan for about 2 years. And all of a sudden my skin started peeling, my nails started peeling off. I developed psoriasis and a couple other symptoms. And so I go to the doctor, and they do a blood test, and they say your blood markers look like you're an 80-year-old with rheumatoid arthritis, and you should go to a rheumatologist, and you should probably have like a hormone therapy and all this other, pharmaceutical interventions. Oh, and by the way, it's the result of your vegan diet. Your vegan diet is killing you. You need to eat red meat for the iron. You need to eat fish for the omega 3s. Stop being vegan or you're going to hurt yourself and shorten your life. And that was obviously very scary, but I'm also an extraordinarily stubborn person. So I was like, no, 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 no. I have read so many books on this. There's no way that that's true, right? And so essentially I went back to the literature, and I dove into it, trying to really understand this, to disprove one or the other. And what I learned was similar to what I just shared. There are some of these nutrients that have a complex story behind them. And it's just all about being thoughtful and really thinking about your nutrition in a holistic way, in terms of what are you getting from whole plants and what might you need in a complementary form. And since starting it, I can tell you that my journey has definitely been experienced by other people. Like I can't get into an Uber or a conversation with folks who say like, "What do you do?" And then I tell my story, and they go, "Oh, I was vegan." I mean, I hundreds of people have told me I used to be vegan, but, and then they tell you the reason why they are no longer vegan. And so many times it has to do with a doctor or a friend or whomever telling them, oh, well, your hair is thinning because of this reason, or, and that's why I applaud your work with the Plantrition Project, because I think it's so important that these people in positions of influence and authority, particularly the ones in white lab coats, aren't dissuading people from this lifestyle. And so we really give people that insurance plan, and we give them a way to feel really great. And not only that, we give them the nutrients that are third party tested. Everything comes in a compostable bag. I could go on and on, but this has already been way too long of an answer to a simple
Good.
question. But those are our brands. Like I said, it's just all about keeping vegans thriving on a fully plant-based diet so that they can continue to do the important work of spreading this movement.
Now, Matt, did you find out what exactly you were deficient in when you were on a raw vegan diet?
Yeah, yep. So we confirmed it was low in B12, low in vitamin D, and low in omega 3s. And then I think also low in zinc, but we did not have a blood test for that. Those are the things I supplemented with heavily, and within about 6 weeks, I could see a difference in my skin. Within 3 months, I saw a difference in my nails. The psoriasis went away. I did another blood test, and everything has looked good for 7, 8 years. And that's when I knew, we had to do something about this. And so called up my friend Matt Frazier, and we got to work trying to bring the best vegan nutrients, by vegans for vegans to the community.
I agree. There are so many people who have X, Y, and Z excuse as to why they are no longer vegan. And then I feel like whatever it is, the paleo, the low carb, the carnivore, the keto, there's a different name like every year for it. And it's just unnecessary. And that message, the message of truth needs to be louder than the message of deception. And Dr. McDougall says it great. He says people love to hear good things about their bad habits. I personally, he does. He's the type of person that doesn't care who he is.
Great. Yeah, it's a great,
And he is
yeah,
real. And I personally love people like that. I want to hear the truth.
for sure.
Be straight, and because ultimately it's for my benefit, it's for your benefit to hear the truth.
All right.
And
Yeah.
so I'm so glad and thankful that you and your business partners are creating things that can not only help vegans stay on the path of what's best for them, but also people who are either transitioning or even still eating meat, because meat eaters are deficient in B12. Meat eaters are deficient in vitamin D. There are meat eaters who don't go out into the sun, and who live in the cities, inner cities, or who even live in the country, who just don't get enough vitamin D. And B12 is from soil, and they artificially inject it into cows. And you could be low in
Yeah.
B12 as well. So not only can your company help vegans stay on the path of what's best and most nutrient dense, but can also help people who are coming over to the side of what's best. So thank you
Yeah.
for creating that, and for helping people and this planet and the animals on many different levels. Please tell us about the animal rescue work you do and the sanctuary you assist with.
I am a board member and an active supporter, and love to promote them. It's called Love in Arms, and it's just outside of Boulder in Colorado. And we have something like 120 animals of all stripes and feathers and fur. Actually, I think that's up to like 140 now,
Wow.
because we rescued we rescued five potbelly pigs and found out two of them were pregnant. And so there's now like 5 plus 8, so it's gone up. I need to get need to get new numbers, but yeah, they're super cute, and I'll find a picture. But it's an amazing sanctuary, and sanctuary work is really, really hard. And I would say, for anyone who this is the new mom was
Oh
um
my
all
goodness,
her little babies.
baby piglets. Oh wow.
Yeah, and let me tell you, holding a baby pig that's like the size of your hand is one of my new favorite pastimes. It was entirely selfish, and it's because I wanted to make sure to have access for my kids to interact with these animals because we live in the mountains. We're really blessed to have a lot of deers and bears and foxes, and they don't really get to interact with those animals in the same way. But for me, I think that despite what I said about uh, doctors, I actually think that the health motivation to veganism or to a plant-based diet is actually the worst path. It's the most flimsy, it's the weakest connection, in my view. Because if someone is doing this out of self-interest, if they believe that veganism is the healthiest diet for them, then the only thing you need to do is convince them that some other way of eating is the easiest, or sorry, the easiest or the best way to get healthy for them. And that is a fairly easy thing to do. I mean, just look how quickly people have gone from, low carb to keto to paleo to carnivore, right? Like people are always, I mean, we all humans are very, very susceptible to storytelling and new science and these inflammatory headlines about, now we should all just be eating MCT oil 3 meals a day, and here's why. And it's like you can convince yourself of anything pretty quick. What is really, really hard to undo is seeing an animal as a sentient, emotional being. That is like super difficult to undo. Once you've got that in your mind, there's no coming back from it. And that's why I think these animal sanctuaries, are so, so important because once you go there and you play with a big pig, right? Like a hog-sized pig, right? Like these are 500, 700,000 pound animals, but they're so, so smart, right? And the way they care for their pen as a home. Same, goats that like they are so playful. They jump up on your lap, right? They're super, super fun to play with. These cows, which are enormous, right? Like 3,000 pound cows, but they're just like these big dogs, and you see them playing with balls in the same way as dogs play, right? Cats play. It's like what's the difference, right? And then you start going a little deeper, and for those of us who are parents, you start making this connection with dairy cows, or cry for 5 days after their kids or their kids are taken from them as a regular part of this process. It's really hard to disconnect that. And so while all day, I talk about nutrition, and I'm happy to go into the biomechanics of these different nutrients and why they're so important for your heart and brain, and why you don't get K2 from a normal vegan diet. And I'm really passionate about that because, like I said, if you don't feel good eating this way, there's no way you're going to continue on that path, or at least it's very difficult for most people, right? If you don't feel good, if your blood tests are all messed up, if your hair is thinning, which happens to an alarming number of vegans, and there's lots of reasons why, and we can go into that. But I still fundamentally think that the way we keep vegans vegan, right, is through optimal nutrition, which starts with whole foods, but maybe includes some of these hard to find nutrients, and that deep connection to their why, which I think can be so, so transformatively kind of bound up in this relationship to animals. And that's why I think sanctuary work is so important.
What's the name of the sanctuary and how can people donate or help or even visit if they're in the area?
Yeah, I hope they will. It's a beautiful place to visit, and we do a lot of tours. And depending on the season, we do all sorts of things. We're actually going to be doing a turkey pardoning at the governor of Colorado's house, and And it's called Love in Arms, Luvin Arms. And if you Google that, you'll find it. Again, it's just outside of Boulder in Erie, Colorado. So for anyone who's in the Denver area, check it out. And depending, like I said, on the season, they're doing trick-or-treating this weekend, and lots of fun vegan activities there, but also just a great place to go and connect with animals.
What are your top three recommendations you'd give to somebody who wants true lasting health?
Oof. I think three is really, really tough. But the first one might be surprising. And that is, eat a plant-based diet, right? But not in all, in order, because it's hard to say what's more important. But I think a whole food plant-based diet, as anyone listening to your show is probably fully aware, it's just the healthiest thing you can do for yourself. So that's number one. Number two, I'd say surround yourself with people that you love and who love you, and preferably people who have good habits. But as I get older and do more research into this, we're writing a new book on both health and happiness. And I think it's just so incredibly important because depression is infectious. Obesity is infectious, right? Like you can actually look at the people you surround yourself with, and in the same way as infectious disease spreads, so does ill health from foodborne illness, as you say, or these lifestyle diseases. And so surrounding yourself in a group of friends, like if all of your friends, drink like copious amounts of alcohol, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to not drink a lot of alcohol, because that's who you're hanging out with. That's who you're going to dinner with. That's, and like I say, you know, and the same goes for, going for hikes, right? Like, are they the type of friends who go to the movies, or are they the type of friends who go for a walk and talk about meaningful things? So, obviously, in your personal lives, your spouses, your parents, your friends, if you can surround yourself with really loving people who you love and who love you, and preferably people who are have healthy habits, that's a really positive thing. So that's number two. Number three would be the grab bag of all the other lifestyle habits that we all know to be true. But sleep, right? The more that we learn about sleep and the way that these fluids wash over your brain to remove beta amyloid plaques, right? Like there's just so much. Not only do you feel better and your decision making is better, but in terms of reducing your risks of early onset dementia, for instance, right? Like getting a little bit more sleep is worth it. And then, water, sunshine, exercise, meditation. That'd be my number three, right? All of those really important habits that, if you can kind of stack those into your day, you're going to see progressively higher levels of physical health as well as happiness.
I love it. I fully support all of that whole message, especially the sleep part. Sleep is very important. I feel like we live in a society today that if somebody does prioritize sleep, they get made fun of, or they're looked at as not being very productive, and you have to go to sleep, get everything done in the day, and then wake up super early, and then be sleep deprived and get as much done as you possibly can. And it's like, well, that's not the best for health. And I fully support getting enough sleep, whatever amount that somebody needs to feel
Yeah.
energized and satisfied. And you don't have to overload your body with caffeine. You can feel like you don't even need caffeine. And I think sleep is amazing for health. I don't think people talk about it enough, to be honest with you. Like maybe some neuroscientists talk about it on their podcasts or in their books. But I think the vegan community needs to start talking about it too. And because we're all about health, right? Like these are all things. Dr. Ornish talks about like well-being and the power of connectivity with friends and family, and um, that social support, and how that's so important for longevity and health. But I haven't heard a lot of people talk about sleep. I know Dr. Lyle talks about sleep a little bit. but I like it. I find it interesting. I find it fascinating. Same with water and like what types of water we should be drinking. But thanks
Hmm.
for saying that. Thanks for talking about all that stuff. And thanks for your time today. Shall we do a little sign off? Do you feel like you want to say anything else? Do you have
Sure.
anything new coming out or any books, any new
No,
companies?
no, my message is always just be thoughtful about your nutrition. Whole food plant-based is definitely the place to start, but it's really cheap through our company and or through your doctor. Get tested for vitamin D, B12, even your omegas. It's really, really easy to see where you stand. So that's it. And thank you so much for sharing your platform with me today.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Love, Gianna. And
Matt Tolman, who needs a cooler name like Gianna.